So we are, as you know, running for office. But I want to remind you guys why we're doing it, right? What's the big pillars of the campaign and of the agenda? And without looking at anything, just off the top of my head, the number one thing that bothers me, and I know it bothers you guys about the city of Wayne. Well, I mean, there's many things, right? There's many and many a things that are legitimate complaints about the city of Wayne. And my biggest problem, the thing that I see, or the things that I see as the biggest hindrance to the city of Wayne, its residents, and its future, really it's multifaceted, but the biggest thing that I see is ordinances. Ordinances, void for vague ordinances, more specifically, ordinances that are no longer applicable to 2025, 2026. And in some cases, completely arbitrary, completely contradictory. And what they appear to be, a lot of these ordinances appear to be written to do is to basically invite arbitrary and capricious enforcement. Right? So basically, effectively, there is no law in Wayne until somebody complains. Right? That is the city of Wayne's policy. That's what they've adopted. That's one of their policies that they've adopted. When it comes to, in particularly, open burning and other ordinances as well. When you actually read the city charter, the city has that are just completely, completely and utterly void for vagueness, or they're repugnant to the Constitution itself. Where is your hairs, brother? Which ones? The ones on my head? Oh, those went away a long time ago. I'd say probably around. Well, really, I would say 22, 23. That's when I just completely lost my hair. Not all at once, of course, but over the. I would say it was probably about a 3-year period. But the facial hair grows in good. Everywhere else grows in good. It's just the hair on the head. No, I gotta have a couple more surgeries to fully remedy it. The first surgery, which was ungodly painful, really was just like a fourth or a third of the way. Really, it was just a painful experience, but a necessary experience. But yeah, there definitely needs to be some touch-up work and all of that. But really, at this point, and it's been like this for years, I just shave it off because I find it to be more hygienic and easier to maintain, right? Yeah, but I needed to have some sort of like when I shave it, right, I had to have some sort of a hairline at least established, so I don't just shave it off and then just like as soon as it starts growing in, you can tell right away, type of situation. So yeah, unfortunately, one surgery wasn't enough, but more to come, I guess. Derma roller, yeah, I need to try the derma roller. Uh, Ditasticide or any of that, no, I couldn't do that. No, too many side effects. Didn't like how it made me feel. Um, just felt bad on it. Just in general, I guess. Minoxidil. Yeah, I mean, works good like topically. No, I use that. No, I don't have any issue with that. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. Thanks, I appreciate that. But No, I should be taking it orally. I used to take it orally up until I got imprisoned. I got thrown in a dungeon for violating a law that doesn't exist. So over sentenced beyond the maximum sentence, and yeah, after that, I mean, it just kind of a lot of things in my life kind of stopped. Right, when you're sitting in jail with no bond, you know, and you're being told you got to go through all these jury trials, which, of course, nobody wants to go through a jury trial. Let's be honest, but it really wasn't necessary. You know, it was completely unnecessary because any attorney that's not a piece of shit, right, or just completely incompetent, one or the other or both, they would have done a motion to suppress, and motion to suppress hearing is all that you would need to take care of it. Motion to suppress evidence, I should say. But yeah, other than that, you know. But yeah, appreciate the compliment. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing, like I said again, the biggest thing that I've uncovered, or the biggest problem I have with the city of Wayne, is its ordinances. Right, it has a plethora, a insane amount of ordinances that are just completely and utterly either unconstitutional, void for vagueness, I should say, or they just invite arbitrary and capricious enforcement. So that's really the number one agenda item, is repealing and getting rid of those. But obviously, you know, you can't just run, you know, one person, right? Oh, you're going to run for mayor, you're going to run for councilman. You know, that's great, but you really need multiple people. And so we have multiple people that'll be running, so we can push this agenda. So it's not just like, okay, you win a council position or you win the mayor position, right? Or you win both, right? Because my wife's running as well, Luisa Maria. She's running for councilwoman, and then we have two others as well that we're going to keep anonymous, but they'll be running as well for councilman, councilwoman, council person, right? We're going to have multiple council persons, um, you know, running. And of course, as you know, running for mayor here, you know, because someone's got to do it. Someone's got to stop the insanity and, you know, tackle it head on. You know, so while other people are running from the danger, right? I guess in this case, I am the danger, right? The city of Wayne tried to argue that in 29th District Court, right? Under their local ordinances, that I was the danger. You see, I'm, you know, that's what they argued. Well, you know, funny enough, we're just now getting into the good stuff, right? When I don't say that literal, but I say that metaphorically. Yes, exactly. Exactly my point. I am the one who knocks, right? So that's kind of like, you know, in some weird way, you know, I'm like the Heisenberg of Wayne, except, you know, minus the meth empire and all that, or the drug empire, as Hank Schrader, as Hank called it. Um, but yeah, I am the one who knocks. That is a great campaign slogan, actually. Because yeah, I mean, essentially, I'm just that guy. I'm that Heisenberg that's crazy enough to go inside your building. It's kind of like the Tuco scene where he goes and meets Tuco, and he goes into his building, and then he blows it up, and, you know, walks out like a badass with all the cash. You know, that's kind of what, you know, has to happen, right, for the city of Wayne to make any sort of progress, right? And really, this county, right? Let's be frank here. You know, it's not just like the problems in Wayne are limited to only Wayne. I mean, that's obviously not the case at all. And, you know, there is places with more poverty than Wayne. You know, Wayne's, like I said, one of the most corrupt cities in the state of Michigan, if not the United States. I'll say the Midwest. All right, we'll just say Midwest. We're not going to go that far. But it's definitely, it's shocking. Not in a good way. It's just completely shocking. Yeah, no, I'm not into supply and stuff like that. Um, you know, that's not a lifestyle that pays. Don't do drugs, kids. Stay in school. Don't be no fool. Definitely not. I'm not gonna say that I ain't never grown some medicinal herbs of the earth before, because I certainly have. But yeah, there's no interstate commerce in that fashion. We sell shoes and apparel, so support our store, Disabled Vet Source. Um, and Veterans Pond Project. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's crazy cities and towns can create ordinances that go against the Constitution with no accountability. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really why I'm actually filing lawsuit litigations today. It'll be filed, likely tomorrow or Monday, but definitely before the end of the year, before the new year. But yeah, I have multiple cases that I'm currently pending litigation on, that ask that very question. It's crazy cities and towns can create ordinances that go against the Constitution with no accountability. I mean, well, in some cases, they don't just go against the Constitution. I don't think that wording is accurate enough. What they actually do is they act in a way that's totally and utterly repugnant to the Constitution on multiple amendments. It's not like, when they when they do this type of stuff, it's not like they just violate one or two. They're just violating one, right? It's not like, okay, they're violating the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. It's like, in my particular case, cases, right, plural. I mean, they're violating ADA, FHA, First, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Eighth, 14th Amendments. I mean, they're violating like 5 or 6, right, which is damn near half of the Constitution. And so, plus the FHA and the ADA, and the other avenues of it, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and all these different things, right? Selective and retaliatory prosecution, which is certainly what the city of Wayne conducted themselves with, fabrication of evidence. But they went beyond fabrication of evidence, right? They went fabrication of probable cause, right? Doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down to enforce a law that does not even fucking exist. And Monell 1983 is the key here, because when a municipality enacts a custom policy or tradition, when they enact those things, and they publish it on their city website, like the city of Wayne did, right? They publish it on the city website, which effectively ratifies the open burn policy as law, right? So they ratify it on the website, they ratify it, but they don't ever enact it or codify it through the city council, right? And it just goes to show, like I said, it's certainly incompetence, without a doubt. I mean, that's undeniable, but there's a malicious component to it as well, a vindictive, if you will, component to it as well, that really, shocks the senses, right? It shocks the conscience of people, because it's so mind-blowingly absurd, the things that they did, and then their actions, right? Their city attorneys, right, ratifying this behavior, right? And it's really shocking stuff. And I think a lot of change is going to occur because of me and my courageousness, willing to fight it, willing to listen. This isn't about money. I've lost probably 20 or 30 grand so far, since May 9th of 2025, when they broke into my curtilage, right? I lost an obscene amount of money, just living in Wayne, dealing with these people, calling this my home, sleeping here. Like, I've endured tremendous amounts of, not just emotional hardship, but economic hardship as well, financial hardship. I've had to defend myself with multiple attorneys, right? Who are, one was more worthless than the next, right? And, just totally ineffective counsel, any way you slice it, any way you look at it. And you're like, man, all these attorneys just do not want to step on the toes of the city of Wayne. I wonder why that is. And then, of course, the Mark Blackwell, Lisa Nosarini case, and then Anthony Miller. You look at the history in that, and that kind of gives you a nice background story. And then the murder of John Zook Jr. in 2024. And you're like, wow, okay, these people have a clear documented pattern of retaliatory and hostile behavior, not, towards their workers, first and foremost, but beyond their citizens as well, obviously, as an extension of that. And, all of it's slowly starting to catch up to the city of Wayne. And, they don't like the fact that, like I said, it's not about the money for me. I run for office. I don't even take a salary. I just donate the money back. I don't even accept it because I don't want the money. It's not about the money. And, these lawsuits that are being filed, that's not about the money either, right? The thing that it's about is the principle. And the principle is that, exactly as you said, cities and towns can create ordinances that go against the Constitution with no accountability. Right. They can do it ad hoc and just, treat it like you're the crazy one you're the crazy constitutionalist because you want your 4th and your 14th Amendment. You want your property rights to be respected and upheld. You want due process, and you want to be free from unreasonable, unlawful searches and seizures, right? And I guess, like I said, that's too much to ask, right? And then to have reasonable disability accommodation, that's too much to ask as well in the city of Wayne. But I suspect that it goes on in a lot of other places too. I've heard quite a few things about Westland, Melvindale, all kinds of municipalities in the area. They do a lot of rogue shit. They do a lot of unconstitutional shit, right? Instead of just like adopting the United States Constitution and the Michigan State Constitution into law and just having that be your charter, that's the basis for your charter. They want to recreate the law. They want to create their own rules, and they want to create their own definitions of words. And they really want, what they're engaging in is really a form of witchcraft, really. And they're, a sorcery, if you will, where they're trying to cast sort of a spell. And it's like, yeah, but the problem is the supremacy clause for them. The supremacy clause of the United States Constitution. The higher government always trumps the lower court or the lower government, right? And so higher laws trump lower laws. And so that's the issue. That's one of the issues. And then, of course, the void for vagueness doctrine too. That's another issue. And that's what I see in the city of Wayne. I see, a dozen. I mean, I could read the city charter, and I would venture that probably 30 to 50% of what I read ordinances are completely void for vagueness. They're completely unconstitutional, repugnant to the Constitution, in particular about the 4th and 14th Amendment, procedural due process, right? But then, of course, you have like the sign ordinance that's totally against the First Amendment, right? And it's like basically that city charter needs to be revamped utterly, completely and utterly from the inside out. I would say that at least half of it needs to be repealed, if not more. We might just need to get to a situation where, we take the few good parts that remain that are in it, and we just get rid of the rest, and we just and obviously that requires council approval. And so what we do is we run 4 people total. 4 people on a set, so you have mayor and you have 6 council people, 6 councilmen or women or council persons, right? And you just get you get the mayoral position. So either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm running for office, every election cycle, whether it be council, mayor. My wife, same thing. She might be running for mayor. Who knows, right? She might be the one who ultimately, decides to be the authoritative figurehead. I mean, in some ways, because she honestly probably would have a better chance of winning that position. Although I think, a dog turd fucking with a bow on it could outperform John Racy, right? John Racy has no results whatsoever to speak of. And really, he's a loser and he's a piece of shit. And he's not well liked, and he's really repugnant beyond just, physically he's repugnant, but his demeanor, his he's not a he's a very I don't know, Christopher Sanders. He said something to me that makes a lot of sense, but you know, he's a piece of shit. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. And you know, normally that would be not appropriate to say about somebody. But you know, in this particular case, you know, because he's the leader of the city council of Wayne, the people that are, you know, having the fire department pass laws that don't exist, right, with no legislative authority whatsoever. You know, Jeremy Schneider, the fire marshal, can't legislate the law, right? So it's like but then they're publishing it on their city website. So then it's like, okay, well, the city manager is ultimately responsible for it because that's the city manager. But then you're like, well, shit, the council is run by 6 council people and a mayor and a city clerk. And it's like, well, damn. So the city clerk knows about it, obviously, because she's the one who has to take all the paperwork, and she's being sued all the time. Or no, well, she had a PPO against her, you know, so she knows all. Me and Tina, you know, because she's done some very unprofessional things in the past towards me. We'll put it that way. And so, you know, I don't really worry about her. She's actually the least of the problems. I mean, she's a problem, but she's the least of the problems there. She just does what she's told most of the time. But she likes to pick and choose, you know. You know, she doesn't like to, how do I say? She doesn't like to act in accordance with the law all the time. And she, you know, she likes to pick and choose, and she likes to drag her feet on things. But, you know, I don't think she's the problem per se, right? You know, she's obviously a problem. She's got resting bitch face syndrome, and she's just kind of repugnant. She's not very nice to look at. And, you know, there's a couple women that work there that are younger, that are, you know, have less dementia maybe, or I don't know if Tina's got dementia, but, you know, the way she acts kind of makes you wonder what's going on with her mentally. But, yeah, I just, you know, find her to be kind of not very professional, you know, kind of smelly, kind of, I don't know, just like she's like a pork chop, you know. That's what she reminds me of, like a piggy or something. And then she's just got a really nasty demeanor about her, and I don't think she's good at her job either. I think that's, you know, the biggest problem with her is she's just not at her job. No, her and John Racy, and, you know, John Racy obviously being the leader, right? So he's second responsible. Tina Parnell, or I mean, Diane Webb, excuse me, she's the city manager. But then, of course, you have Carolyn Miller, you know, who's the city attorney, and then you have Michael Bosnick. So, you know, because they're attorneys and they're supposed to know the law, plausibly, right? Even though they're all technically supposed to know the law in government, there's no excuse for ignorance, right? But yeah, I mean, like Bosnick and Miller, you know, they're obviously just as responsible, just as culpable as the city manager, Diane Webb. And then John Racy, because he's the mayor, he's the head of the council, right? The whole council is responsible because it's them, all of those people referenced. And then there's the chief of police and the chief of, and then the fire marshal, right? Because usually for the fire chief, Michael Stradner, I think his name is, not 100% sure. But yeah, you know, those people, the head of the fire department, or the heads, I'll say the fire marshal and the fire chief, the chief of police and the deputy chief of police, right? They're always up there, you know, every council meeting, every other Tuesday. And, you know, you got the city planner, you know, you got a couple other positions. But yeah, I mean, that's effectively who's responsible and who's supposed to know the laws, right? But clearly didn't. But I don't know. It's just like I said, we have a lot of things to get into. We got a lot of issues to discuss, right? It's going to get very drawn out, right? Like this video already has. And I got to get chopping some trees down. I got to get some trees chopped up because, you know, we have some recreational burning to do. You know, burning our seasoned firewood. No, not seasoned firewood. Our clean wood, right? Which includes timber, leaves, or no, sorry, not leaves. Timber, trees, and wood, right? So I guess, yeah, clean wood, I don't know. It's like I said, a cursory elementary review of this open burn ordinance 2025-02, right? A cursory review of it would have found all of these void for vagueness errors. But they're not errors, though. They're intentional, as you know, guys. They're actually intentional. And the reason that we can infer that is because when you read further into the ordinance, it just gets repugnant to the 4th and 14th Amendment, right? Like, we can send any representative to your house, to no mention of a warrant, no mention of due process, no mention of none of that. Of course, the Michigan case law is totally in favor of open burning, right? The statutory case law on the state level is just insanely pro open burning, right? Unless you can prove concise, measurable health, damage and effects, unless you can prove that, it's a temporary and sporadic invasion of your I forget what the verbiage is. I have all my case law written down on this. I have every case in the state of Michigan going back to the late 1800s about bonfires and open burning, and the case law has never supported warrantless searches and seizures. Community caretaking doesn't apply. Open fields doesn't apply. It's just like it's really the city of Wayne. I just want to tell you guys, that's why ultimately why I'm running too, is because the city of Wayne, clearly by this example that I've just shown you, they're wasting your money, guys. As simple as that, right? They're enforcing laws that don't exist. They're getting the city of Wayne sued, right? And it's like, for what, right? Because their feelings got hurt, because they don't want to, because they're lazy and they don't want to go through the process, the codification process, or they don't want to, even if you go through the codification process, even if you have a valid, and I use that with air quotes, valid ordinance, you really don't have a valid ordinance if you enforce it by violating the 4th and the 14th Amendment. If you do that, well, then you can't get, any sort of, can't get any leeway. It's not like if you violate the law to obtain evidence, well, that evidence is suppressed and it's not, permissible. And then, you just got the city sued and they just lost because they obtained the evidence illegally. This is very basic stuff, right? 4th Amendment, it can be explained in like 20 seconds. Minus a warrant or consent, well, first of all, you got to have probable cause, no matter what. You got to have probable cause and consent or permission. Or you got to have a warrant. Or you got to have what's called exigent circumstances, which means a life or death situation, or like a fleeing suspect. There's a few exceptions, but it's very limited scope of exceptions. And it's used very infrequently because of cases like Welsh versus Wisconsin, and Florida versus Jardines, cases like that, and then there's a plethora of others. I'll get into at a later video to tell you guys, where I'm coming from on this. But it's like I said, it's quite remarkable to watch, these people just openly and mockingly make, they ridicule and they make a mockery of the U.S. Constitution, of the state Constitution, and really just to America in general, right? All of the rights that people have fought and died for, all of us veterans, right? Like myself and millions of other veterans, and those that are no longer here with us. Tens of millions of people have fought and died for our rights that we have in America. Is right for people in my own backyard, right, acting in this reckless fashion, in this disregard. It's the reason why I have to fight it. It's the reason why I have to withdraw my pleas, my no contest for disorderly conduct plea. No contest for disorderly conduct plea. I got to withdraw all that because, this is in the public interest, obviously. And it's bigger than some money. It's bigger than we're talking about people's lives here, right? People like me who have sacrificed so much for this country, and people like my wife, right? My wife's joining the United States Army here in a few months here. So it'll be maybe 5-6 months. She'll be active duty in the United States Army, and you're like, wow, if they'll treat someone who's serving this country like this, or has served this country like this, or they'll, basically spit on the ground, spit on the graves of people who came before us, and make a mockery of their sacrifices, and try to nullify their stories, and the reason why we have the liberties and the freedoms that we do, right? And the higher courts more often than not get it right, but these local courts, man, these local district courts, 29th district court, and the help with the 35th district court, and I've heard stories about plenty of other district courts, local district courts, and even Wayne Circuit Court. But Wayne Circuit Court, I don't hear nearly as much negativity about that as I do these local district courts, right? And like I said, they've gone completely rogue. They no longer serve the people that they're supposed to serve. I mean, that's the whole point of their existence. And my platform is very simple. If the government's not going to uphold the rights of its citizens, of its people, then why do we even have a government? And I say that, not on a national level. I say it not even on a state level, although the same principles, I guess, ultimately apply. But I'm saying this like on a local level. Why do we need the incompetent and inefficient government, right? Why do we need this? And it's expensive too, guys. That's taxpayers pay some of the highest property taxes in all of Michigan, and there's just no justification for it, man. There's just absolutely no justification for it, and it would be doing the public a world of good to nullify them, right? To nullify their existence as it pertains to their they want to use this power vindictively and maliciously and arbitrarily and capriciously. They don't want to use it with restraint. They don't want to use it with proper due process, right? As you could clearly see in my case. I mean, my case is one of the worst due process violations in all of Michigan state history. To overserve the total sentence in jail, pre-confined or pre-trial confinement, and then to be on months of house arrest, right? Very punitive, restrictive house arrest, 24-hour GPS tether house arrest, so effectively no different than being in jail. And then to be sentenced to probation after you've already served the maximum sentence possible. You've already overserved, the maximum possible sentence. Then the city is going to make you sit in jail for another 2 months, effectively doubling the maximum sentence. If you want to have a trial, okay? If you want to have a trial, a jury trial, or a bench trial, you're going to have to wait months, 2 months. And you're telling me that's not a due process violation? I think it's way more than a due process violation. I think it's a cruel and unusual punishment question, and a bunch of other things too. So, accountability is coming. Make no mistake about it. As I've said before, and I'll say again, accountability is coming to anyone who's watching this video. Anybody who is involved in the monstrosity that was the City of Wayne versus McFarland criminal case of 2025 that began on May 9th. Yeah, anyone who was involved with that, who played a role in that buffoonery and that fuckery, and didn't feel the need to invoke the applicable laws, right? I mean, you had 5 attorneys that just made a mistake. 2 judges that just made a mistake. Oh, it was just whoopsie. No, it's not a whoopsie. It's not a procedural error at that point. It's beyond a procedural error. It's a structural error. I mean, it obviously is a procedural error as well, but it's a structural error. Structural error in the law. And yeah, my case is, like I said, something that needs to be argued in the appellate courts, and something that needs to have more long-term ramifications for both parties. Because like I said, the damage has already been done to me. So, you know, in a sense, I'm playing with house money here. And there's absolutely no disadvantage to me or to the people of this country to not allow me to have a jury trial. But really, it's going to take several jury trials, especially, you know, in a civil court proceeding. But no, it's like I said, it's not about money. It's not about even my life. It's about the truth. And the truth is that this is all fruit of the poisonous tree, because it's based on a warrantless search and seizure of my curtilage to enforce a law that doesn't exist, right? And protesting your rights being violated is not obscene telecommunications, right? It's called a disabled veteran who's got PTSD, who is just traumatized, whose wife and family was just traumatized by a complete and utter obvious government sanctioned violation of my rights, right? The chief evil of the 4th Amendment and the 14th Amendment was committed on May 19th, and July 5th of 2025, but also March 28th of 2024. March 28th of 2024 was when the chief evil began, 1 month after I moved into the property. 1 month after I moved into the property, guys. So what does that mean? That means the sanctity of my household was compromised, forever compromised, 4 weeks after moving in. You know, a disabled veteran who has a homestead is not allowed to have peace and freedom on his own property. He's not allowed to exercise and use his property as he sees fit within the confines of the law. The city of Wayne said, fuck the law. We don't need a law. We can just do what we want. And that's what they've done. And so, you know, I need the story to be told, and I need the truth to be examined, right? Because this will help a lot of other people in the future, a lot of other property owners, homeowners, just people in general. If you have property, can the government just make up a law to search and seize it? You know, I don't think so. And so I don't think any of you think so, and I don't think virtually any people, you know, percentage-wise, very few people, a minuscule amount of people think that way. The vast majority of Americans, including, you know, judges, think that, you know, unfettered discretion to violate someone's 4th and 14th Amendment is never allowable. It's never acceptable. So I appreciate your time, guys. This video is getting very long, and I don't want to drag it out any longer, but appreciate your time. Talk to you soon.